got to stop from here. Where do I go from here? Or do I want to talk through it?
Yeah.
Oh, God. One of my favourite memories about Gary is when I was in labour with my eldest, Lewis. I was in so much pain and all he could do was keep fighting me for the gas. He just wanted to keep taking it off me all the time. And then the other thing was I asked him to film the birth. But most people stand back and they'd film the whole scene. You know, take everything in, the nurses, everything that was going on. But no, Gary filmed the scene and he done a close-up of my privates. So all I had on the film, I turned it on, it gave me the shock of my life. All I could see was a close-up of my private parts and a little head popping out. The last time I'd seen Gary was on the Sunday. We'd gone to a local pub to see him. He'd give us some money for the kids. I was on my way to a barbecue. I asked him if he wanted to come, but he didn't want to come. And the next morning, on the Monday morning, I was driving back to my house, and when I just got this this feeling that something was just totally wrong. Just all of a sudden got really upset, didn't know why. I just felt like something had happened. And that morning I was due to come round to Gary, so I come round here that morning, knocked on the door, no answer, banged on the window, no answer. Was calling his phone, didn't get any answer, so I didn't think nothing of it at that stage. I mean, I used to come round every morning, but I just thought he might have slept in from the night before. So the next day, still hadn't heard nothing, starting to get a bit worried. Spoke to a couple of his friends, all said they hadn't heard anything, and Gary was the sort of person that he'd be out and about every day, always going to the pub to see his friends or in contact with people. So this went on for a couple of days, and sort of by Thursday, I just had a terrible feeling. I knew something was wrong and I knew I had to do something about it. So I'd come round here that morning. I found one of his friends outside trying to look through the window as well. They were worried. Couldn't see anything. So at that point I decided I was going to just break in. I had to. So I'd gone back round to a friend of mine round the corner who had a garage. Spoke to him and asked him to come back with me to break in. We both come back round. It was in the afternoon at this point, and we got to the front door, and so what I'd done, I took my shoe off, and there's a porch door and the front door, and I just decided I was going to smash it. So I did. I smashed the porch door, the window and the door, reached in, and then there was a key inside for the inside door. I used to keep a key just inside of the porch. So then I used the key to get into the house. Got to stop from here. Where do I go from here? Or do I want to talk through it?
Yeah.
Oh, God. As I come to the end of the hallway, I turned right as if I was going to walk into the front room, and something caught my eye at the side of my eye from the bathroom. As I've turned to look in the bathroom, I couldn't even believe what I was looking at. Gary was laying on the floor, and I just instantly knew that he was not alive, that he was dead. I just, from that second onwards, it just becomes like a blur. It's just, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He was just laying there lifeless on the floor. And I mean, my first reaction was I just started screaming, no, no, no. And all I kept thinking was he's fell out of the bath. He's hurt himself, he's hit his head, he must have fell out of the bath. And I just kept saying, I can't believe it, he's fell out of the bath and died. But as I've come into the front room, I noticed that the whole of the front room had been torn apart, and that's when I knew there was something wrong. I knew that something had happened. He hadn't fell out the bath at all. It was just like a dream. You just didn't feel like I was really living it. I couldn't believe what was going on. I called my dad to come round, because I just didn't know what to do. He turned up, and that's when we called the police. They brought a doctor, come in, went to the bathroom, examined the body and then declared it a crime scene. And that's when we all had to give statements to the police. The funeral was in August. It was a day that we'd all been dreading. But I remember on the day, the cars came for us. We drove to the cemetery, and I remember as we drove in, there was just hundreds of people everywhere, all along the road leading up to the church. My first thought was, oh, they must have other funerals going on. What I didn't realise at the time was that everybody was there for Gary. It was so many people. I've never seen so many people at a funeral. And it was just really, really touching to see that many people there and really sort of comforting for us. And as we got to the church, there was so many. They couldn't fit everybody in the church. They all had to stand outside and listen from outside. It was a really sad day, but at the same time, it sort of gave you comfort that there were so many people that loved Gary and they were there. We wasn't too sure whether it may have been someone that he knew, a friend that he'd had to stay overnight, or whether it had been someone that had broken in. The following February, we got a phone call from the police saying that they'd arrested a man, and they believed that he had been trying to burgle the house and that he hadn't realised Gary was still here. The guy that was arrested matched the description of the guy leaving the house on camera. They'd also had DNA evidence of a water bottle that was found in the house that the person had drunk from. They had DNA. When we learned about the court case coming up, I was actually told that I would have to be called up as a witness in court, because at the time, after finding Gary, when I gave my first statement, because I was in such a state, I didn't really think about what I was saying. I got a bit mixed up. And what happened, I told the police that the last time I'd seen Gary was actually on the Monday, when in fact it wasn't, it was the Sunday. But because I'd made this mistake in my statement and said that I'd seen him alive on the Monday, the guy they arrested actually used that as his defence. He didn't actually speak throughout the whole trial, so we never actually got to hear his side of the story or anything about whether he did it, why he was there. It was just all based on the facts, the case against him. The first trial lasted for nearly 3 weeks, at which point it was a hung jury. So that's when we found out there had to be another trial, a retrial, and we had to go through it all again. The second trial came around, and again we had to go through the whole thing. I had to go into the dock, and again it was basically my sort of word against his about whether I'd seen Gary that day or not. So for me it was quite important really that I did get across to the jury that I hadn't seen Gary that day, because if he'd got off with the charge because of a mistake that I'd made, it would have devastated me. So we went for a second trial, and lucky enough at the end of the trial, it was a much shorter trial, but the jury believed that he definitely had killed him, and he was found guilty. The relief I felt when he was found guilty was unbelievable. I was so, not happy, but just glad, so glad. I just remember bursting into tears, and he looked straight up at us, no emotion whatsoever. The judge spoke, and he actually said to the guy how we'd sat through 2 trials, he chose not to talk, he hadn't given the family any answers, any reasons as to how it happened, why it happened, that he'd taken away a father to my children, he'd taken away a son to his dad and a brother. The sentence that he gave him was a life term and to serve minimum 26 years. As far as we know, the guy came here with the intent of burglary. He came in through the back doors, which Gary had left open as he was in the house. He was having a bath at the time. The guy had came in, and as Gary confronted him where a fight broke out, Gary got hit over the head with an instrument which knocked him unconscious, and which would have actually killed him within the hour. He would have died from the head injury alone. But they think that while the guy was ransacking the house, that Gary started to come round, at which point the guy decided to drag him down the stairs and place him in the bathroom where he could watch him. At which point Gary started to come around, and we think he tried to use his phone to call for help, and the guy saw, and so he started fighting again, and he ended up strangling Gary and killed him. People showed so much support throughout the trial after Gary's death, which really helped me and the boys. One of our friends set up a Facebook page where people could go on and put comments, which was really, really lovely. And even now, that same Facebook page is still running, and every year, every birthday, every Christmas, people go on and still talk about Gary, put lovely comments, and it really does help. It's really lovely. After everything that my two boys went through during the trial after their dad's death, I was really proud. I was really proud of how they handled it, and especially how they've turned out, how they've done really well themselves. My oldest son, Lewis, he's just so like Gary. It's just like Gary's still here. He looks like him. Everything he does is just Gary, and it's just a real shame that he never got to know him. Gary never got to know him in his older years, because they would have been great together. I've got one boy at university and the other one just starting, and Gary would have been so proud as well. As far as we know, all the guy walked away with that day was a laptop and just loose cash that was laying around the house. And that's all that Gary died for.